Welcome. Thank you for coming back again as we discuss Wandavision. Now in spoilers. We are back again. We are Grown A Geeks here to talk about the newest episode of Wandavision. This is now episode 7. 2 episodes left. We are on episode 7. I am your host, Sam. Most of you know me. Hopefully you've been watching and you know who I am. But joining me tonight, we have Jeffrey. Jeffrey, say what's up to the people.
What's up, party people?
As always, we have Will in the house.
What's going on?
And of course, it ain't a show unless we got him. Brent.
Hello, folks. Be sure to check out the GAG Sports Network. Shameless plug, I'm sorry.
Not a shameless plug. We need you to check that out. As you may know, Brent is our host on GAG on These Balls. He takes care of our sports podcast. He is on the show, co-hosted with Tony, and they cover all of our great things sports, had some great topics of conversation. I've been getting myself personally caught up on GAG on These Balls because they put out great content weekly. Get new episodes every week. That is typically up on, Wednesdays, new episodes?
Usually record sometime around Tuesday, and then I edit, and we're up by Thursday.
All right, so look for your new episodes on Thursday. He also took care of some throwback gaming, so make sure to check that out. I saw it and kind of got inspired, went back and played Dante's Inferno, and totally failed to record any of that. And ended up beating the game, so I may have to jump in and help him out with some of that throwback gaming. Won't let him suffer in silence. But I think he's doing a Mass Effect right now, right? Getting ready for
playing through it, but I haven't recorded anything.
Okay, it's all good. You're playing it. Getting you on that throwback gaming. Well, at this point, I'm just going to stop. I'm going to shut up because we had Jeff host for us on the last show, and he did such a great job that no one wants to hear me ramble anymore. So, Jeff, take it away.
All right. Before we get into it, go ahead and hit that like button. Make sure you subscribe.
Gotta do it right.
I want that smash.
Smash that like button. Smash that subscribe button. And ring that notification bell so that you get these shows when they come out every time on time. All right, boys, let's get into it. WandaVision. All right, so thank you, Sam. I appreciate that. Thanks to everybody who had kind things to say about my hosting last week. So one thing I will say is that I know we were super long on the recap. So I think today, because we want to definitely make sure we get into those theories that we kept teasing and ended up having to be a separate episode, instead of going through like a crazy, like in-depth episode recap, we're just going to go around the circle and everybody kind of throw out like your favorite moment from the episode, and we'll talk about those things. And from there, I think we'll be able to get like a good conversation going. So I'm gonna start with you, Brent.
All right. So first and foremost, I just want to say I called only one thing right this whole show, so I have to toot my own horn on it. I called that they were going to do like a Modern Family style moment. Really happy I called that, got that going. Throughout the episode, I really liked all just how every joke flowed brilliantly, and Kat Dennings was phenomenal as always in this episode. But there were so many Easter eggs throughout that there was just a lot of great stuff that happened throughout the episode, and we finally got our big reveal that we've all been waiting for. But some of us are looking at our red string theorist down there in the corner, Will, have been on top of for quite a while now. So I can't say enough good things about where WandaVision's been going. I'm a little disappointed we only got 2 weeks left, though. I'm not even going to front about that.
So is your favorite thing Kat Dennings? Is that what you want to talk about?
One of my favorite things was Kat Dennings, and then
more importantly, Kat Dennings in chains.
I didn't say that specifically. I don't want that on record.
I am putting words in his mouth. He did not say that. I am putting words in his mouth.
I loved all the Easter eggs throughout the episode, and I loved that we finally had, was it Monica, get her superpowers? So I was super thrilled that she is now either Photon or
Spectrum.
So that's
Or
Or
Pulsar.
going
Captain
on there.
Marvel.
Pulsar. Yeah, it can go either way right now.
Yeah, I thought that was like actually a really like cool moment. I think because of how like Marvel is set up, like there's been so many movies where we haven't had to like go back to the beginning and see like the spider bite. We didn't see that in like this MCU Spider-Man. We did get the like transformation chamber moment with Captain America, but like some people just kind of came in and hit the ground running and had their powers, and it was kind of like a footnote. So it was really fascinating to see after the first time her going into the bubble, getting like sucked in so fast. The second time coming out, getting yeeted out super fast, but like kind of seeing the layers and like the CGI there, and her hearing the different voices and almost kind of being pulled apart, but like holding herself back together. I thought that was just like shot really well. Like the sound design, the like graphic arts, the special effects. I thought that was like super, super impressive with her getting her powers too. Yeah.
Oh, one last side note: when she got yeeted out, she went through 4 walls. When she got back in, she went through 4 walls. So breaking of the 4th wall is the name of the episode. It was all about your girl.
All right, let's go to Will. Will, favorite moment from the episode?
Favorite moment from the episodes was that, in all honesty, I think it has to be more with Agatha, with that freaking, or Agnes, or I think just going through her little transition periods like that, where she just looks like, more and more she's always been up to something. You've always seen her so like that, but I like how it's getting more and more where it's like, okay, she's setting up, and she played it all the way through to the end and stuff like that, and it's just like, I really like where they're going with her. I still think there's more stuff at play and stuff like that, but I really like the way that they set her character. So I think that was one of the most interesting parts for me. And a side note, I love when Vision was just like, what am I doing? Like, fuck this. Like, he had to take off to go get back to his family, because if you notice, and that's where like that real dad moment came in. He's like, how are my kids? Do you know? That's what he's concerned with. I want to make sure my family is good and stuff like that. So props to Vision for that. And so that it looks really good. So those are my favorite moments.
Yeah, I really like the whole Agnes thing, even the reveal being like a theme song to like a whole like, so Agnes is like, she has like this whole other show going on, and it's basically like, oh, this was like a show within a show. Like we thought we were watching WandaVision, and really we're watching Agnes all along. And like she like, who's watching her show? You know what I mean?
Right.
Like
Probably
we've been
Ralph.
watching WandaVision.
Probably Ralph.
Yeah.
Oh, I got Ralph theories now.
Exactly.
All right, Sam, favorite moment from this episode?
2 scenes in particular. I did like since we've gotten into the more modern sitcoms, as Brent pointed out, he accurately predicted that we would do those mockumentary style shows where they have the confessional moments. I think the confessional moments for this episode were perhaps my favorite segments, because just from the meta aspect of this show, the viewers at home, us, you, those of you listening, we're watching a show called WandaVision. And we're watching something that takes place in the MCU. And what's taking place in the MCU has a segment that has created its own little pocket reality inside the Hex. That is being broadcast, and that's being viewed by the agents of SWORD. Then we got the Malcolm in the Middle episode, and we had our first like 4th wall break where one of the boys was actually talking directly to the camera in the same style that they did on the show. And now we're getting everyone having their confessional moments, and we're getting a little bit more insight because we had to, like we were able to finally figure out that the aspect ratio kind of lets you know, it lets you know where you are in regards to the series. If you are simply watching what's taking place in WandaVision, it lets you know if you're actually a part of the action, if you're watching what's being broadcast, or if you are in the, and I'm air quoting here, the real world. And of course, the real world in this case just being the MCU aspects, like, and that would be where Harkness is, or not Harkness, but the director. That's where he is. He's in the real world in the MCU. So those confessionals, being able to kind of get a little bit more insight, because even though we can see and like because of the fantastic acting, we know what's going on with them, the nuances in their face, stuff like that. But like seeing Wanda actually kind of recognize that something is going wrong, that this is really off script, and she's talking into the camera in her confessional. But when you watch her, you can see that she's got these real nervous tics, and it's so subtle, like just like a twitching of the lip when she's talking about things. She's like, I'm fine. And it's that to me added a new element to the overall story. And as we had mentioned before, like the acting really doesn't get praised enough, but they do so much. Tiana Paris is able to give you so much with just her facial expressions. Wanda gives you so much with her voice and her facial expressions. You had even pointed out, Jeff, that Vision is sitting here in a luchador costume looking like a straight clown and delivering like fantastic lines, and it's so that was definitely the part that I liked the most about this episode. It was multiple times through the episode. That was my favorite. Second part, superhero landing. Love that. So those are the parts for me that really made this episode stand out.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Like my scene was also the standoff between Wanda and Monica. I thought that, coming full circle from like last time you saw me, you dealt with me. I was light work, and now I'm back, and I'm not. I ain't the same Monica that I was before. And I think seeing Monica really challenge Wanda, and seeing Wanda respond to that, and Agnes just need to like kind of step in and be like, oh no, we're not doing that. You need to get out of here. You know what I mean? And I think a few of our episodes ago, I was kind of thinking about Agnes being the devil on Wanda's shoulder, if the theory of her being like Agatha actually came true. Right. And I think that was the moment. And I definitely saw I thought it would be more of like Vision on the other shoulder pulling at her, but it was actually Monica. And that was like kind of the moral tug of war that was happening right there in that moment. And I think they definitely like set up a lot. I think it's really cool that like all the action that's happening, all the people that's like really making stuff happen, especially in this episode, are women, and just showing like 3 women deal with each other and it not be about like fighting over a man or all this. It definitely passes the Bechdel test. Bechdel test, I think is what it's called. And I think it's just like, it's been written well, acted well. Yeah, I definitely agree. But that standoff has me very, very excited to see like more of what Monica can do and see her kind of like come into her own with her powers and stuff. So, yeah.
And real quick, just to help before, for those of you who aren't aware, because Jeff coming in here hitting you with those big words. the Bechdel, it's actually it's also known as the Bechdel-Wallace test, and it's the way, it's a measure of how women are represented in fiction. So there's instances where all the women are just poorly represented. They all look like damsels in distress. They all, they're very catty. They only concern themselves
everything
with
that they do in
superficial
the
things.
story.
It doesn't.
It's like everything that they do in the story revolves around serving a male character in the story, even if they're protagonists.
And so this is
the
actually,
yeah,
it's used to actually help show a little gender equality in media, in fiction and things like that. So good call. It does pass that test without a doubt. They've done a fantastic job.
And basically, to show you how simple the test is, it's basically like, do two women have a scene together where they have a conversation that does not involve a male character in the book, in what they're talking about and what they're doing, serving that male character in some way. Like, do two women just like talk? And you would be surprised how many films you might think pass, definitely like do not pass this simple like test that shows, how we regard women in our society at large by how we portray them in our movies and in our media and stuff. So, not to hop on like a super soapbox or anything, because I'm also
I feel like we're
mansplaining
that now.
Yeah, I was going to say.
No, just wanted to define the term for the listeners who did not know. Of course, we probably could have just encouraged them to go and look it up and expand their own knowledge and vocabulary.
Right.
To learn more.
All right, so
we'll do an after-school special.
All right, so we've come to the portion that we've all been waiting for. Does anybody have anything else in the episode itself that they just want to point out as like a point of conversation, or do we want to jump into those sweet theories? Because I know Will got a lot of red string and a whole bucket full of thumbtacks.
Well, there's a couple
only
of
like
things.
One thing I want, but I'll
I
just jump right on.
I have more than one, so go ahead.
I got, let's see, one. I got 2 points, 2 small points for the Easter eggs. There's a lot of Easter eggs, but like just hit the main ones because I know you guys want to jump into theories. I thought it was cool how they illustrated that Wanda was losing control when the controllers were starting to change rapidly on the kids, and they're like, what the heck is going on? Seeing it jump through the different eras of gaming. So seeing the controller losing control, I thought was a nice touch there. And then when you finally got down to Agatha's basement, which that house is the actual house from Bewitched, by the way. I don't know if everyone actually caught that, like at first glance. But when you got to the actual basement, Agatha had what appeared to be the Darkhold in just out there, which if you're not a comic head, which I am not, I had to look up what this was because I'm not going to try and front like I'm that guy. But that is a book of spells that is very, very powerful within the Marvel Cinematic Universe. So if Agatha is in fact in possession of this, it could spell out a lot of things in the works. So those are the only 2 points I wanted to jump on.
Throwing Easter eggs and stuff out there. Freaking fine. I'm gonna throw 2 Easter eggs out there because it's going to go into my theories and stuff later on. Because I know Sam's gonna go along with this one. First off is the Wanda license plate. Did anybody notice the Wanda license plate going through the intros and stuff like that? If you go back and look at it, those numbers at the top of it. Stan Lee's birthday. It's a nice little nod like that.
Nice.
All right, 12, 28, 22. That. So the other one, so that was with the commercial, the Nexus. Anybody catch what I saw in the Nexus with the Power X10, the bottle at the top?
Yeah, 10.3.
Yeah, well, no, there's a bottle at the top, right over the guy. It says Power X10 and stuff like that. Now, again, this is my little red string, a little bit. There's how many X-Men movies are there? Actual X-Men movies. There's 9, and this is X10 is on the shelf. So, again, it could be a little Easter egg because Brent brought up the clocks and stuff like that. So I'm not sure if they're fucking with me or not.
Like on the shelf, like we not making X10.
Like I don't know what they're doing. They don't know what we're doing with X10. Freaking, do we get mutants or not? Whatever, but it's there. It's something. I don't know. All right, Sam, go ahead. I got that out. I'm good.
Okay, that's cool. So the ones that mine aren't really Easter eggs as much as they were just the way I interpreted something, and I thought it was. I this is where I started like putting up new string. When Monica is coming back through the barrier. Now, first off, we got to see the design of the new thing that was made, and she actually had all the schematics worked out in the episode where Darcy, and Wu are sitting in the room, and she was saying that she needed a containment unit that it had to be lead designed to block out photons and this, that, and the other. She already had it laid out. She sent those specs over to someone. Someone built something, and the person we saw was actually a friend of her mom's. I don't think that's the engineer, first and foremost. She didn't give me any indication that she was the engineer because she was like, did we get it right? Indicating that someone else was involved. And they made a lot. I mean, we're not the only ones who were looking for something more out of the aerospace engineer. But I did think it was a very interesting point that whoever was involved with building this was building this with the idea that it met aerospace or, astronaut-like capabilities. So that still is kind of open to being someone who's obviously had either someone who's had some time in space or someone who's going to space or has been to space. We got a couple of things. But when she's actually when Monica's going through the barrier herself, that little segment of her going through the barrier was the most pivotal moment in that episode for me, outside of the obvious reveal. And the Agatha Harkness part, we've been saying that very early on. We've stuck to that. We kept waiting and we got confirmation. So that didn't have the same kind of reveal. But seeing, as you mentioned, seeing an origin story take place real time is something we haven't had in a while. Haven't had that excitement to see a new hero. And that's what this is. This is a new hero. So when Monica's going through, we get an opportunity to see. We see her character as Geraldine because it seems like she's actually being split into all these different versions of herself. We see the Geraldine version. We see the first version that walked in with the Kevlar and everything. We see the 70s version when she got put out, and then we see the real-time version of her that's currently walking through. So that's 4 different versions of her existing simultaneously. And oddly enough, all of them are trying to move forward through the barrier, almost as if the 4 of them all exist separately. The only other scenario I can think of where 4 people might exist independent of one another would be this cool little thing called the multiverse. And going through that barrier has rewritten her body at a molecular level. When she gets through the barrier, she sees, like her eyes are glowing and they're blue. And when she's looking around, it's like that moment from The Matrix when Neo finally believed he was the one and he could see the coding. Like she could see the spectrum a little differently. And as a result of that, that was kind of a big deal that she was able to see that spectrum. So I was very, very excited about that part. And that leads into a lot of other stuff. So we'll get into that when we hit that part of it. But that for me was the only other thing I wanted to discuss.
Yeah. I mean, I think you said it beautifully. Like you said, we haven't had an origin story for a while, and we haven't seen the moment, the accident or whatever caused in a while. And it was just done really, really well in that moment, even though we didn't even know we were seeing the origin of like a new hero. We kind of I didn't know she was gonna come out on the other side and have like her eyes glowing and seeing in that new spectrum or whatever she was seeing. And so that was even cooler too, because we got it as a surprise in the moment. We didn't know it wasn't like she walked in and they're like, all right, we're gonna give you the serum and you're gonna turn into a hero, It just happens. And it was beautiful. It wasn't like an accident, like Daredevil. It was just like a beautiful moment of her doing something courageous and seeing someone who deserves powers of being a hero actually get them, because she's actually trying to save Wanda. And I thought that was like great. So let's get into these theories, because a lot happened in this episode. Obviously, the big reveal at the end, it was Agnes all along, Agatha all along.
Love that theme music. Using
Great
the
theme
Munsters.
song, great reveal. And, like Sam said, we kind of called it. But obviously, like, we needed to confirm.
Yeah,
I see Will pouring
nice to get
himself a
confirmation.
congratulatory shot. Give himself a nice pat on the back. Because he was the first
break my
opponent.
arm with that one, but yeah.
And I'll admit, I was late on that train, and I hopped on it last episode, and I'm glad I did, because I wasn't as shocked. I would actually be curious to talk to people who like had no clue, and then when she turned, and then that theme song started playing, like the emotions that those people felt who actually were betrayed in that moment and hadn't already like confirmed their own suspicions. So I thought that was like a really great like comedic way to handle something like that, because usually it's like, oh yeah, and then you're tying up and you're doing your villain soliloquy, but this time it's just like, again, the use of montage and flashback, another very heavy like sitcom trope that you see out there where you get to like, this is going to be a montage episode. He's about to show us like a bunch of other fun stuff we've already seen before. But this time it was more of like sliding doors. So as we know,
movie,
this is the show that answers questions with answers that end in another question. So I guess the new question is, now that we know who Agnes really is, Agatha, do we think she's working on her own? Do we think that she is like the harbinger of something bigger, something greater to come? Will, you look like you have something you might want to say about that.
I don't know. All right, so we're looking at this is right that I still think there's something else at play here. I'm not quite sure if she's sitting there rocking the Darkhold, from what it tells us with that. So I think it's also possible that she's siphoning power from someone, using power so that to maybe help boost some stuff or whatever to kind of control what's going on, because to take over Wanda is a big feat. So freaking granted, I knew in the comics that Agatha was a mentor and a friend at one point, so there's different things that they can do with Agatha, but I'm not sure if there's a deeper thing going on. So we saw a lot of the like the goat skull, some of the runes and stuff like that, which could point towards a different direction. I'm really staring at freaking, like Agatha started thinking about freaking like, and this wasn't lost on me, but I wasn't really thinking about it until we started having the children come in. The twins were born and the children started showing us with that. I'm like, Agatha had a son and stuff like that. Freaking. So freaking is like, okay, well, freaking, what can that have to do with that? And also I saw the boy missing on the milk carton. And I'm like, could that be Agatha's son? So that freaking, could that be freaking son, which was Nicholas Scratch, stuff like that? Could that be the rabbit and stuff like that that's going on? So
and maybe
things.
Because to me, that kind of explains the connection between Wanda and Agatha, because they're two people bonding over grief and losing loved ones. So that's cool. Brent, you had your hand up earlier. I'm gonna go to you first.
No, let Sam tag in. He's so excited.
I want to add to what Will's saying specifically. So that's the only reason I want you to come to me. So Senor Crispy. The rabbit obviously looks to be the familiar, and the son's name was Crispy. And if you think back just a little bit, after Sparky died, Agatha
John Wick, where
told
you at?
us. But after that conversation, did you notice? Remember how we were all kind of discussing? We were trying to figure out that feeling when she said, "Mom, you can do anything. You can even bring people back from the dead."
Mm-hmm.
Her reaction. That to me, and I said it then, it felt like genuine surprise. Like she was honestly sitting there like, wait, you can do that? And I'll follow up on that point. We'll let some other ones go, but let me make a note right there. Bring back the dead, because that was a whole... I started pulling out thumbtacks myself with that. But
All right, Brent.
I wanted to point that
no,
out.
sorry. I thought
No.
you were done.
I wanted to point that out.
Brent.
All right, before we dive further into this red string, because we're all about to get tangled up at a certain point in time, to add an addendum on to Will's point, what if that missing person is the missing person Agent Wu was sent to go get in the first place? Just adding on to that. And then
The kid on the milk carton?
His first missing persons case. Yeah, that milk carton person could be Jimmy Woo's person, all up in one. So, because we didn't get it whether boy, girl, anything else. It just said missing person.
Like, y'all need to see my bug eyes if you're listening to this. Like, okay, all right, I'm with you. Yeah, give me some more of that. Okay.
And then I thought the rabbit's name was Scratchy.
Senor Scratchy.
Senor Scratchy. Because Senor Scratchy is a nickname for the devil.
Mm-hmm.
Just another little addendum to that one. I thought it was really interesting that Wanda, when she started having her breakdown and she was looking at the camera, when we finally noticed that Agatha was behind the camera in the big reveal, Wanda says, "We built the hex," staring directly at the camera. So we know Agatha is definitely part of what was going on there. And then, as Will was saying, there was that yak skull in the basement, which a yak is symbolic of the devil as well. And adding on to Will's siphoning point, I feel like those roots under the town have been slowly sucking at Wanda's magical essence, magical energy, just trying to siphon at her. Because in the comics, didn't Agatha Harkness at some point create like a little witch town, like for all magical users to come and...
Agatha is rumored to be one of the Salem witches. So that's a big thing as part of her story, so that to revitalize her particular culture and stuff like that. But that's always been her background and stuff like that, is that she was involved in all that she was one of the survivors of the Salem witch trials, so on and so forth. So yeah, it could be any of those things that you've mentioned so far.
And as you've eloquently put it, what if in episode 2, when we had that whole little tea gathering, that was a witch's coven? Literally none of the other female characters have shown up other than Dottie, who was in charge of that whole setting up that whole moment that Wanda got pulled into. So it could have been a witch's coven of sorts.
Okay, so let me add on to that real quick. We got a glimpse of Dottie when Monica and Wanda were having their discussion in the yard, and it started to get a little heated, and the entire neighborhood stopped and was looking over. We got the mailman.
The mailman and Dottie were the main two.
Right. Those were the two that they showed. Everybody else was background, but they put the camera on them. And we've always kind of felt like everything Marvel does is intentional. Like nothing's a mistake. Like they're a stickler for detail. And so the company that the mailman's working for is called Presto, which is that's a flourish that magicians use, abracadabra or presto. I'm calling it now. He's Ralph, because he seems to be one of the people who has a unique form of. He has unique dialogue. inside this place. Everybody has had some unique dialogue at times when they talk. Like even the doctor was, like it'd be so nice to get away, and the Hearts when they were at dinner, they had unique conversation. So something's going on with this mail carrier because they continue to put the camera on him. The logo on his hat was a rabbit, and Agatha has Senor Scratchy right here. That rabbit, something about the rabbit is important, and normally when witches have familiars, witches are typically associated with like black cats. In this case, maybe it's a rabbit whose name is Senor Scratchy, just like her son's name was Nicholas Scratch,
which is also a pseudonym for another character. So it all ties together.
Go ahead. I'm gonna let you pick it up.
It all ties together because again, Mephisto uses the name Nicholas Scratch freaking as an alias. So this can go a couple different directions. Yeah, I said it, Jeff. I said it. I don't care.
My other addendum I wanted to add on my point.
That was a beautiful alley-oop. Thank you for catching that and dunking that down.
let me offer something really quick because I think in this group I'm definitely the Scully to everybody else's kind of like Mulder.
I'm straight Mulder, like I believe. Okay.
And so here's what I need in order to follow you, because that line of theory, that red string that you guys are all like frantically putting up on the wall right now, that makes 100% sense.
It's been on the wall. Okay.
What's the butt?
No.
What's the butt?
I get that.
Waiting for the butt.
And it makes 100% sense in terms of what we know from comics, what we know, all this information that we have, what we know from the show now, what's been revealed. And that's great. The string that I'm missing that I think will help to really
drive home this point,
drive home the connection of all of that and allow me to feel a lot better about the Mephisto connection is the string between Agnes and Wanda. Because now that we know that Wanda knows what's going on, Agnes knows what's going on, and she always has, like, even, Wiccan is like, I like it here. You're quiet on the inside, which for me leads me to believe that, like, basically this little boy is hearing everybody in his neighborhood's thoughts, like screaming out, just like he heard visions, except Agnes, because Agnes is already unlocked. And so anybody who's locked, he hears them screaming. Anybody unlocked, he doesn't hear them screaming, right? Mm-hmm. What is the connection between these two of how they were able to, like, that's what I'm kind of waiting to see, because until I understand the connection between the two of them, I can't really be sure of Agnes's motives.
Okay.
I think Agnes's motives get revealed by figuring out, because obviously, like not a creature, a high-powered being such as Wanda, if we are in this multiverse and we understand there's like cosmic stuff, there's spiritual stuff, magic is real, like we know that in the MCU, right? A person like Wanda definitely pops up on someone's radar. Like if you have some figure that's not necessarily involved in what's going on Earth, but maybe a different sort of like dark side Uatu type character who's just like watching all these things play out and figuring out when is it going to be their time to just kind of like slide in while everybody's vulnerable. Yeah, thank you, Thanos. You cleaned all this up, blah, 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 blah. Now I'm going to take over what you did. If that person saw the battle in Endgame and saw Wanda basically be the one that made Thanos cry uncle, for lack of a better term.
Right. Saw her potential.
She's on the map, because the kind of energy, magic, cosmic, whatever it is, the kind of energy that would be needed to like do something like that and sustain a person like that in that state, I think would definitely like set off some sort of radar or alarm across different realities, going back to Nexus. And we kind of talked about her being like a Nexus being.
Right.
Like, I'm fascinated, and I'm really fascinated in trying to make the connection between Wanda and Agnes before I commit to the red string that follows Agnes. Because if I don't understand her motives, I don't know how and why she's going to be connected to all these other people. That's my
Okay.
That's my reign on the topic.
Brent got something. I'm
go
ready
ahead.
when it gets back to me, but Brent got something. So, what you got?
What if the reason that Wiccan cannot read Agnes's mind is because her mind is already being controlled by somebody else?
Quite possible.
Because there are other more powerful beings, and as Will's been pointing out throughout, there are so many underlying devil in the detail type moments that Mephisto could be pulling the strings of Agatha, and they have been working in cahoots and siphoning that magical power of the town and using Agnes to move things along and overpower Wanda for whatever nefarious purpose. Just a thought.
So
I mean, I feel like we can put that on the Mephisto board.
Right, like that's a sticky note.
We gotta get
we can't
more
connect a
info
string
before
because
we
that's a
slide
what
to
if.
to the big board.
So, all right, so Jeff, and I get your point, and I appreciate because that actually that gives perspective. And I had said before, like I had all these ideas and things like that, but one of the things that I had to kind of like sit back from was I was like, okay, I know all of this, but what have they shown me? And oftentimes we talk about, even when we do like our movie critiques and we have our conversations with one another, one of the things we talk about all the time is not having to we talked about it earlier tonight, not having to fill in the gaps. And so I certainly get where you're coming from and why you're hesitant to say, okay, I accept that. That makes sense. Because just because it's in the comics doesn't make it fact. Because if they have not shown it to us, they still have the option to do whatever they choose. So here are... Okay, y'all sit back because I'm a deep dive, okay?
Well, actually.
Right, this is my well actually moment.
There we go.
Okay. Y'all know I've been tracking this show, and I look at casting, I look at all the notes and everything that's available. Will and I were having a conversation. I forget what exactly it was we were talking about initially, but I want to say we might have been talking about the Avengers video game or something like that. But somehow we came up, we were talking about who was going to be next in line. We got into a conversation about Riri Williams, and we talked about all these other people. And one of the people we talked about was Iron Lad. And in the conversation with Iron Lad, it came up that, and this again is from the comics, at some point moving forward, Iron Lad becomes Kang the Conqueror. Now, Iron Lad becoming Kang the Conqueror is, just one of those things. But the relevancy of that is that they have actually already cast Kang the Conqueror. And because they've already cast Kang the Conqueror, we know that he's going to be in future Marvel movies. With him being in future Marvel movies, that's kind of a big deal because that actually sets up some of the... Okay, so the other day we were talking, and when on our theories video, one of the things I pointed out was that, like today, we've only got 2 episodes left. Because we've got 2 episodes left, they have a certain amount of information that they have to give out and get to us in order to get us from point A to point Z. And I feel like right now we're just around Q. Like, we're not as far along as I feel like we should be if we've only got 2 episodes left. But a couple of things kind of stand out. There's a Loki series getting ready to come out.
Mhm.
And in the Loki series, even when you watch that trailer, there's a special group. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to paint the picture, and I will leave those who want to jump and follow the thread. If you want to pull this red string and see where it goes, you can go down that rabbit hole. There's a company, there's a group of people who are in the Loki series who are literally watching what Loki is doing, because they watch people who travel in and out of time. And because they watch people who travel in and out of time, it seems likely and logical that they might track people who can move between time. I don't know, maybe someone like a Nexus being. And we already know and have kind of established that Wanda is a Nexus. So this company...
In the comics.
No. Oh, well, actually, no. They have already been shown on the trailer for the Loki series. So they exist both in the comics and in the trailer for the Loki series.
No, I'm not saying Nexus beings don't exist in the MCU. You said
No. This company.
Nexus, the company. But you mentioned Wanda being a Nexus being.
Right.
And I was clarifying that.
Okay.
They haven't established her as a Nexus being in the MCU.
I mean,
potentially.
We got a commercial that establishes Nexus. But it doesn't say it's her. I'm with you. Doesn't say it's her. Ultimately, my biggest fear was that they were not going to reveal the big bad in this series, and I stand by that. I think Agatha is a red herring, just being presented to give you a big bad, and we've already mentioned the possibility that she's being controlled by someone else. We've said Mephisto so many times that I feel like he should just be cast on the damn show. And we're going to call the mailman Mephisto just because he's got to be there at this point. Like, we all feel so strongly that he's
Unless
there.
It's Pietro.
It's got to be someone. Well, see, and there's a thing about Pietro. Pietro...
Wait. I don't want you to tangent off into another theory.
But that's still...
I want to make sure you finish your point.
Okay.
Of that you were countering my point that we've not put a red string between Wanda and Agnes. So the red string between Wanda and Agnes, and I'll simplify this and shorten and get to the point here. That book is not open. Because that book is not open and it appears to be swirling with energy, we see that Agnes is able to manipulate things around her. She does like a little hand flip. Her door closes in the basement. She looks at Wanda, and we see Wanda's face kind of turns a little purplish. Her eyes are purple. She can control Wanda. It's very clear that she is pushed for certain things to happen. And when we find out later that she's been behind a lot of these other things, it's clear that she's pushing Wanda to something. My belief, based on what we've seen, is that she's pushing Wanda to use more of her power so that she can be in a weakened state. She needs her weak enough so that she can control her. Then she could siphon off the amount of power that she needs. I'm under the impression that she is trying to siphon this power to open the book. Because given that book is crackling with the kind of energy it has, if Agnes... this part is a little speculation because they haven't said one way or the other, but this is just like, I feel like this should be kind of general idea. Agnes would not be worried about Wanda or bothered with Wanda if that book was open.
anytime you see a witch with a tome, and this is in just about every facet of media, so I'm hoping that this holds true in the MCU. Anytime you see a witch with a tome, those books are always like the big deal books. Now, there's some other spoiler videos out there that you can watch, some Easter egg videos out there that kind of give some insight and some very good possibilities of what the book could be. And there's some information from the comics that presents some other stuff that it could be. But that book is crackling with energy, and it's crackling with reddish orange energy, which is not the color energy that we see coming from Agatha. Agatha's energy is purple. She needs red energy because red energy is the type of energy that can give her access to that book. And when she gets access to that book, she will then have the power she needs to do whatever it is her ultimate plan is. Otherwise, they would have put any focus on that book. You know what I'm saying? That's Chekhov's gun. You don't show that book unless you're going to use that book. And they're going to use that book for something.
And so for me, I think like that's the thing. I think that when it comes to Agnes, there are multiple theories that could like siphon off from her in terms of like who she's working for. Like you said, I feel like the reason we've been kind of focusing so much on Mephisto is because we have like this expectation that because Wanda is a quote unquote good guy and Vision's a quote unquote good guy, that their story is going to be somewhat like resolved and buttoned up nicely at the end of 9 episodes. And I think everybody kind of has that feeling like, man, like how the hell are they going to fit all this information into like the last 2 episodes? And the answer is they might not. This might be, like you said, like this whole series might be a red hair, not just Agnes, but more like, and that doesn't even mean that Wanda is going to come out on the end of this on the side that you think that she's going to come out on.
She might come out.
Yeah,
on
she might come out.
Theory. Did you watch the theory video yet?
I hadn't gotten a chance to watch it.
I'll recap.
So yeah, I think like that's kind of why I'm like, I get it. I think like like if we start a pin that on Agnes, all the theories that we've said about who we think it could be, whether it's Mephisto, we've heard Nightmare, we've heard, maybe it's just her trying to bring her son back because how she like reacted to finding out that like, because even in those like first few episodes, she was there just like as a helper, but it didn't feel like she was like pushing Wanda. But then once that revelation was made in the episode, the very special episode, it does feel like she was kind of like pushing more and amping up the energy and like popping in like with more to do and more say so on what was going on. So it's like there's multiple threads that lead to like multiple different endings, and I think that exploring that relationship and connection to like why Agnes and Wanda would be drawn together in the first place would help me understand which Agnes string I should tie my Wanda pin to. Brent, go ahead.
I'm just gonna have a quick interjection, and then I'll let Sam go with what he was going to say. But
no, Will got something.
Yeah, we're gonna go to Will, okay. And then I think if we want to talk, I think there's like a couple other things that maybe we want to get into because they're gonna answer questions on the next episode too. So we'll have to figure it all out tonight.
They're just gonna give me more questions Brent. I don't have any answers to.
Yeah.
But I love how we've all completely also glossed over that Hayward is like, all right, our plan is set in motion. We're gonna go. Like that got buried in everything that happened in the episode. And then I feel like Agnes never was really helpful to Wanda. All she ever did when she always would show up was separate Vision from Wanda. Throughout every single episode, she was impeding Vision from talking to Wanda and being that voice of reason. Because we saw in this episode that Vision kept getting held up by the most obscure crap that any person would absolutely lose their mind to.
Full Truman Show.
Yeah, literally thought it would like, yeah, my wife is trying to keep me away. Nah, bruh. That is literally Agnes holding you up because her master plan is taking place right now. She needs you and whatever powers you have in this hex way across town. That was all I wanted to get out. So
Will.
Hey, well, I just want to bring up because you hinted on the Nexus and stuff like that, and again, trying to connect that string between Wanda and Agatha and stuff like that, and honestly, freaking, I don't think it's very hard to do, especially because of who Wanda is and stuff like that. Like, she is the Nexus being, and so like that they haven't come out and said it yet. They haven't locked onto it, so like that. But the way that the Nexus works is you can only have one Nexus being that anchors that reality. So freaking for the Earth 616 for this particular reality, so like that, this shit is anchored by Wanda, in my opinion, so like that so far. Because again, that's the way it works in the comics and stuff like that. And because that anchor is her and stuff like that, this entire reality is going to be affected more and more by anything fucking with her and so like that. Anything that's got her screwed up in any type of way, so that any traumatic experience, all that kind of stuff, is constantly going to destabilize reality in some way, shape, form, or fashion. And no other Nexus being can inhabit that reality while there's a Nexus being present. So the only way for a Nexus being to interact with another is to project onto another dimension and stuff like that, but they still have to occupy theirs unless they move to another one for whatever reason. So that's stuff to keep in mind. And also when you're talking about the people that watch everything, and that's the time variance authority that watches everything that's going on and stuff like that. So when they start watching everything, they do different things, and it's funny because they had a big trial about with certain characters and stuff like that. One of those being Kang the Conqueror at some point and stuff like that, that they had to have a whole thing over. And they got like it's like freaking imagine somebody sitting at a desk and they get an alarm going off. We got an interaction, we got something going on and stuff like that because they're monitoring all of this stuff. And they have different members and allies that they associate. One of the biggest allies that they associate with is the Timekeepers and the X-Men. That's what that. So they work with them on several occasions. One of the members of the Time Variance Authorities is Wade Wilson. At one point in the comics, he becomes a member and helps them freaking settle their issues or figure out whatever's going on. So just keep all that in mind, so that with pulling that strings like that, freaking it all comes down to Agatha's not the only one with a string attached to Wanda. It's like that. I know we're still waiting for it to be fully revealed for you. It's like that. But every character who's deeming for that type of power and so like that is going to be connected to Wanda because they're going to be trying to siphon her. Because several times in the comics she's been siphoned, or attempted to be siphoned just like that to use her energy for whatever reason. And again, like Brent was saying before, where like the monkey's paw stuff, deals have been made and stuff like that to help her forget about things and stuff like that. And the more that Wanda is willing and so that, the easier it is to manipulate her. Because like when something happened with her kids and stuff like that, and she wanted to forget, she was made to forget her kids by Agatha and stuff like that, so she could cope and still hold reality together. Because again, if she breaks, reality breaks, and that leaves that entire universe susceptible to anything, say a Shumagorath or anything else. So again, I can fly off the wall here with theories and stuff like that, but I just want to bring the point of like what you're saying with the time variance authority and freaking the Nexus. So yeah, I'm good.
Sam, I know you have some stuff you wanted to get off your chest.
Y'all can just see it in my face, right? Okay, so the Time Variance Authority, TVA, as Will mentioned, that is their group that Kang the Conqueror, he's got to deal with them. They got to deal with him because he, as Kang the Conqueror, one of his biggest things is time manipulation, and like basically he time jumps. And it's kind of like the same thing Doctor Strange did when he was able to win that battle. If he just keeps going back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, then he'll be able to win the battle, not because he won, but because they don't want to fight no more. And that's kind of what Kang can do. He can just play with time until he gets it right and he's good to go.
One side note, with Strange peaks more than he actually enters, Kang enters that reality and like fucks with shit. So there's a big difference between Strange and Kang and what they do when they time jump.
All right. Additionally, Kang the Conqueror's already been cast, as I mentioned. He'll be in Ant-Man and the Wasp and the TV show Lovecraft Country. The actor from that, Jonathan Majors, he's the one who's been cast as Kang the Conqueror. So it's one of those things where, like, when I was talking about how Evan Peters had been cast, and I was like, it's not an accident. He was cast because he's Quicksilver, and that's her brother. He's going to be Quicksilver. Now, the way that he's Quicksilver, that, of course, is still kind of like, I want to get a little definite answer with that. I'm with you there. But it's still one of those things where it's like that's kind of the way it's presented. It is presented like that for that reason. Additionally, after Kang, you've got, we know that Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness is going to feature Wanda. And I said on our last theories video, we are not going to get the big bad at the end of this because it's not long enough. That what we will get will be enough to satiate us. And ultimately, I think Wanda's going to be the villain. Now, initially, I thought she was perhaps behind a little bit more. We see that Agatha is a little bit more responsible for this and that. But we just saw her get mind controlled by Agatha. So if Agatha can now control her and manipulate her, she could, in fact, unleash hell, possibly even literally, because she's now in control of one of the most powerful beings in the MCU. And if that's the case, technically Wanda is the villain. Whether she's mind controlled or not, it is her doing, her powers that make these things possible. That is where I think they're going with it. I think that's going to make her the villain. And I think when we get to Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness, they will have planted enough seeds and watered those seeds along the way to, like, really break this down. I mean, apparently there's some speculation. There's Easter eggs that go all the way back to Spider-Man Far From Home. The end credit scene there. I don't know how much weight I put into that, but they're out there if you want to start chasing red strings.
I wouldn't put it past Kevin Feige.
He's proven he's a mastermind of the highest order at this point.
I mean, like,
bro, they talking about the spider suit is made with, like, if you zoom in on the spider suit, there's hexagons on Spider-Man's suit. Like, it's getting.
I mean, there are, but I think that's more of like structural. Like, they like that's more of like a structural thing
that
for like flexibility.
That hexagon pattern is structurally more sound, right? But now we're getting into a thing where, like, you see hexagons everywhere.
This hexagon was in Guardians of the Galaxy 2 when they were literally jumping from world to world to world. It was,
that's how they do
hexagons
the
again.
space warp to get through. And we saw Watchers there. Okay, I don't want to go down that rabbit hole right now. It's there.
Yeah, I feel like we're in this zone of like what. I feel like we're
moving past theories and getting more into
what we want to have happen.
Yeah, because I'm like, what is that? What questions does this stuff like answer about WandaVision?
Like, should we cover what we want to see in the next episode and then leave the rest for pure speculation?
That's what I'm saying. Like, is there anything else, like, in terms of theories that we want to just like throw out that, questions? My biggest theory is, like, was the Fly supposed to be like one of the kids? I don't know. I didn't know what was going on. That whole scene was super tense. It was like some Twilight Zone shit.
Oh, because that was a cicada, and like more throughout like film, cinema, and like most people who are into like super spiritualism stuff, a cicada is like significant of rebirth.
Yeah.
It was also nightmares colors, but some people have read a lot into that. I just thought cicadas are green. So I didn't really jump on that train.
All right, cool. I think we definitely have gone one. All right, Sam, go ahead.
There's one big one. I don't know if you were going to get to that, but so a couple of videos ago, I forget which video it was, we were talking, and you said that, you know what? I think it might have been when we were talking about episode 6, because you were like, we are through with the sitcom tropes. We are in the real world now. And episode 7 gave us Modern Family, The Office, gave us another sitcom trope. But we got something in this episode that we haven't had in all the other episodes. Something else that might indicate better that we are now in the, air quoting here, real world. We might actually, we are in the MCU now. We're no longer in WandaVision. We're no longer under the spell. We are in the real world. We got a mid-credit scene. And I think that there's something important in that mid-credit scene which has potential to be red stringy, but it's also just kind of a callback to the episode itself. And I think it has a little bit of weight. Obviously, this was a spoiler video, so if you made it to this point, this shouldn't come as a shock. After Wanda is manipulated and she's under Agnes's spell, or we see that she did something and we see the purple in her eyes, we assume that she's like possessed or, mind controlled now. We see Monica come over to Agnes's house, because the fight that they had took place right in front of Wanda's house. And because that took place right in front of Wanda's house, she could have just went back inside. Agnes comes over and brings her all the way to her house. That's where we see that the kids aren't there, and that was why you were speculating, like, was a cicada one of the kids or something like that, because we don't see the kids anywhere. Anyway, at the end credit scene, Monica looks around the house. She's trying to like look through the window and stuff, and she sees one of those like cellar doors like you see on the old movies and stuff like that, when like a storm cellar where you have the two big barn doors that you open up and it's got steps going down. I had to watch that scene like 3-4 times just to make sure I wasn't seeing it wrong and that I caught it properly. When Monica looks down into that tube, we, the audience, we, the people at home, we can see that the vines are crackling with the purple energy. Monica's eyes are the same blue they were when she comes through the barrier. She is using her newly found powers. And because she's using her newly found powers, she can see that energy. While she's looking down this barrier, Pietro walks up and is just like, Snooper's gonna snoop. I had to watch this scene a couple times because I wasn't sure if when she turned to him, he had possessed her somehow and her eyes were purple. But after looking at it a couple of different times, we didn't see those vines showing any kind of energy when Wanda was looking at them, because Wanda can't see that. But Monica can. Monica has those special eyes. She can see a light spectrum, and she could see that energy coming through those vines. And I think we're about to find out something different about Pietro, because what's the most common movie and TV trope? If somebody's sneaking around and you're the henchman assigned to get them, what do? You walk up, boom, you hit them on the back of the head, they're knocked out. You drag them down to the lair, right? Mm-hmm. He didn't do that. He engaged and had a conversation with her. And she turned and she looked at him, and her eyes were still glowing with that blue, which means she's going to be able to see him
or whatever he is.
Exactly as he is. That's my question for next week.
All right. That's a great question for next week. Let's go to Will.
What the kids,
Question
man?
you want?
What the kids, man?
Will's such a dad. He's such a
Wanda
good dad.
not thinking
Will.
about him. She not thinking about. Y'all better be playing in that toilet.
Well, she went down there looking for them. She was looking for the boys. Vision was concerned, so both of them showed concern about the kids and stuff like that. So they were upstairs 1 second, and now they're
And it makes
gone.
sense
So
because we already know that Westview is for the children.
And charming as hell.
So yeah.
All right, so where the kids at? Brent.
The kids got reabsorbed by the essence of Mephisto. Just gonna keep
No,
burning
your
that flame
question
right
for
there.
next-
I'm just gonna keep doing that.
Just
Your
rip the
question-
Band-Aid off.
No,
Sorry, kids.
I wasn't asking where are the kids. I meant more, what's your question for next week?
My question for next week is
Cat
how
Dennis
is
gonna get there?
Vision gonna take in all of these revelations? Because he's already struggling with the identity of who he is. Is he what Ultron made? Is he what Tony made? Where does he fall in now that he actually has some level of free will and free choice? Because before he's just been following whatever his creator did or wanted. That was just his job. Now he has a choice to decide who he is. I want to see which side of the fence Vision ends up on.
Yeah, I think for me,
Kind of forgot about Vision. Thank you.
my question for next week is about Hayward's plan. Because we all know, when they were supposed to go on the recon mission, he basically sent in a missile. And now that his team has been absorbed, he's going to do whatever it takes to get his men back. That's one of those, universal military tropes. Like, this is my men in there. She's the enemy. I got to get them out. You know what I mean? I'm not saying it's real because
He want Vision.
He
want
don't
Vision.
care about the troops.
He don't give two shit about.
He's trying to
the troops.
remake
He wants
Ultron.
Vision.
Let's just call this.
Well, I mean,
what this is.
even if on the ego level,
Save it,
Sam,
Sam.
you have to
Bug
save
Eye.
it.
I said
Sam,
something
Sam.
again.
You gotta save it.
We already. Me and Brent already talked about this.
Even if it's like just to save face, or even if it's just the inconvenience of you absorb my whole camp and turn it into a circus. It's like he's gonna retaliate because that's a hostile act, and he's like, basically, you shoot at me, I'm definitely gonna shoot back. And I'm curious as to like what his plan is, because he had all that information that he wasn't sharing with everybody. He had to a way to view the inside the bubble. He had like tracker on Vision. He could track people. So obviously my assumption is he's about to do something dangerous. And is that going to be the thing? Because like I can see it now. It's like a scene where like Vision and Monica are talking Wanda down, and they're finally getting through to her, and Agnes is like, no, listen to me, blah, blah. And like right when Wanda's ready to like turn good, kaboom.
Hayward.
And then she's like, see, I tried to trust you. I tried to do it the right way. And this is like, because now this is how the world is.
That might actually be when Agatha comes in, is like, see, I told you they don't care about you. You have to trust me and believe me. Yeah, that's a total TV trope right there.
Yeah. So I'm curious as to like how, we've definitely been focused more on like our band of heroes and what's happening inside the bubble. But now that has split into 3 teams, and that third team has been planning behind the scenes, and we don't know what they're planning. And I definitely feel like next episode we're going to see what Hayward has been up to while everybody else was trying to get in the bubble and dealing with modern family / office like situation. So yeah, man, I think this is a great episode. We got in deep. We got our theories. We got to talk about what we like. Everybody, made some really, really good points, some interesting points. We definitely put a lot of string up on the wall, and there's definitely still a lot more room for more string to connect a few things. So,
Nightmare, Blackheart, where we want to go. Okay.
We'll be here all night. Subscribe to Will's Red String Theory
You know what,
channel.
Will? Whenever you want to record Red String Theory, let me know.
Bet.
So I'm gonna go around to everybody. Just final thoughts, like just quick hitter. If there's anything you want to plug or anything like that, let the people know. I'm gonna start with you, Brent.
Be sure to check out the GAG Sports Network on Facebook, where you can learn about sports if you're new, talk sports if you're a sports head, and just come hang out, be part of a minor area of grown A geek. So I wanted to keep sports separated from all the other geek content, because Whether you know it or not, if you love sports, you're a geek. You're just cosplaying.
Tight. Will, any last words for the people?
It's just me here. I'm gonna keep freaking following these threads and going down the rabbit hole. So freaking just look, y'all want to know anything more? Y'all want to come at me? So with that, message me. But this red string theory might turn into a little something on its own. So we gonna see.
All right, and Sam.
Make sure that you like and subscribe said video. Check us out. Of course, we're in group on Facebook. This conversation opens up Monday, 2 p.m. So every Monday, anytime like a show like this comes out weekly and whatnot, and it drops on a Friday, we try to give people the weekend to enjoy it and not have anything spoiled. But Monday, 2 p.m., we hop right back in our spoiler conversation, and we have a thread that we try to keep going on. Given the way Marvel has everything structured out, it looks like we should have some pretty regular content for you all moving forward. So make sure you hit the like button. You got to smash that like button, smash that subscribe button so that you can stay with us and find out when we load these videos.
Tell your friends about us.
Right, like bring people in. Don't keep this to yourself. You like it, let others know. You know what I'm saying? Keep one for yourself. Tell a friend. But yeah, that's that. And I think Will and I have to get together and talk about some string theory. It'll be red string theory, which sounds like so scientific and yet kind of geeky. I love that. That just became a whole thing right there.
Talking about those hypotheticals.
You heard it. You heard it here first. Like red string theories. That's amazing. But yeah, that's it for me. I don't want to go too much more because I get to talking about.
I know how much is eating you up inside right now, but it's okay. And we all respect you for the restraint that you're showing in this moment.
Restraint.
Well,
okay.
I don't really have nothing to plug, but yeah, like Sam said, smash that like button, smash that subscribe button. Make sure you ring that notification bell so you can get up to the minute updates on the Grown a Geek YouTube channel. All right, guys. For Sam, Will, and Brent, I'm Jeffrey. This has been WandaVision Episode 7 Spoiler Talk. Peace, guys. I didn't actually mean to do the full outro.
Nah, hey, that's what's up. We go rock with Look, I'm gonna hit the button. I'm gonna hit the button based on that because it was so good. I don't even want to mess with that. Boom.
All right, that's our